我姓劉，叫月仙。我喺廣東番禺窩背村出生。我33歲就離開中國。
If I were to reflect on Popo's life when she was young in China, being on her own for so long with Guangdong here in New Zealand, it just makes me realise how hard life would have been for her in China.
She was a wonderful, progressive woman who I felt was born far too early, 100 years too early. The young girls weren't really given any education, so I think right from the start she had to live by her own wits.
我村啲女人大多數都係文盲嘅。我阿媽話啲女人識得太多嘢，太聰明，好難揾到個丈夫嘅。但唔識寫唔識讀係好唔方便㗎。我成日都要揾啲寫字佬嚟幫我，我又唔知道邊個可以信得過喎。
She was incredibly resilient and really, really resourceful. And we saw that on a day-to-day basis, but to understand how she came out from China and what she did in order to get here was just amazing, yeah.
去金山啲男人唔帶老婆㗎，所以我從來都冇諗過會嚟呢度陪我丈夫嘅。嗰陣時啲男人唔可以返中國太耐㗎，因為冇人可以幫佢睇住生仔男盤生意咯。我梗係掛住我丈夫啦，但我做得咩啫？男人應該係去賺錢嘅，女人嘅希望就係佢嘅丈夫可以10年、8年返嚟見面一次。
My father had gone back 2 or 3 times. That's when I think the children were conceived. And then the war broke out, and that's when I think the Chinese men in New Zealand, with the help of church ministers and all that, petitioned the government to allow the wives and families to come to New Zealand.
I'm just admiring of her courage to take a step into the unknown and a completely new life, and not knowing what you're going into is awe-inspiring.
日本仔打到嚟嘅時候，我要走難啦。我已經知道我哋走嗰條路會好危險，所以我做好準備。我將啲銀票同金銀放入我頭髮髻入邊，同我細路仔嘅第3褲。天一黑呢，我就攬住我個寶貝 Frida 同我仔 Alan 就走啦。 Frida 只係4歲咋，我哋又驚又怕，個路又窄又遠。
The main thing I remember is the long trek to get out of China. The feeling of fear, desperation, and the need for silence was instilled in me. My mother had to carry me on her back most of the time, and I can remember all the stealthy running.
日本仔打到嚟廣東嘅時候，我哋聽到越嚟越多槍聲，傳來個消息話廣東已經淪陷啦，我非常之驚，走到攰啦，我哋終於先走到去珠江河。我嘅丈夫嘅屋企人已經安排咗一部非法船去澳門。啲海賊見到我哋成船女人知道我哋係金三婆㗎啦。啲海賊上到我哋部船，我驚到震啦。我就諗咗個辦法，整亂啲頭髮，用船上啲泥揩污糟塊面同件衫。我又扮到好似啱啱俾拆手完，又叫啲細路大聲大叫。喺又嘈又亂嘅之間，呢個辦法果然成功咗，啲賊就拱開我啦。我記得我係包住支銀票同2兩金喺我頭髮髻入邊嘅，好彩我頭髮多啫，個賊掹我個髻都冇跌出嚟。
I really like the story about her hiding her precious belongings from the pirates. The fact that she told her kids, all right, you cry, to make it seem like we've already been searched. I think that was just incredibly smart. Like, that would have not crossed my mind at all. And I always thought that was the coolest thing, that she wasn't too naive or too scared to try do these things. I think that's very, very admirable.
This is just a special feast for my mum, who passed away 30 years ago, and we're just appreciating her today and all she did for us.
Yes, and we still miss her 30 years later.
We do.
We're a family of 7, 1 big brother and 6 sisters.
She brought up 7 children single-handedly. Most men in those days regarded cooking, washing, looking after children to be a woman's job, and the man was the breadwinner only. My father couldn't even boil a kettle of water for tea. She learned quite a lot of English language soon after arriving in New Zealand. She learned to drive quickly and could even drive the shop's big truck.
Because the shop was so busy and we had no other boys in the family, Mum had to resort to driving our big blue Bedford truck to the markets and try and handle the men that were there. Because I think they kind of dismissed her a little bit sometimes.
Pawpaw was very, very strong-willed. She was very good at getting her way with things, and that strong-willedness has definitely, I guess, come down at all of our family, and certainly through the female line, I would say, yes.
Daddy! Tungza! My boy, remember, from now on, you must look before each step and make sure you're marching along Chairman Mao's revolutionary line.
When I was about 15, my mother approached me about wanting to go back to China to visit her relatives and mother, who she hadn't seen for over 30 years. So she was really, really wanting to go. 1966, which actually was about the start of the Cultural Revolution. So we actually hired a van full of goodies for our relatives and drove into China over some of the rivers which were still primitive in those days, so they were pulled across on barges by pulleys. Seeing my grandmother for the first time and thinking, oh, what a tiny little woman, and she's so sweet and so like my mother in different ways. Our home village of Awol was an amazement for me, looking at the water being drawn up from the well and then watching the way they cooked on the brick stoves with the big woks and everything. But I think what was amazing was seeing all the old photos of all us in New Zealand. So they put them all up over the years. I think it was really hard between that 30 years when Mum had fled during the war. I do recall them saying how thin that the auntie had got because they were virtually starving. So this is where they really needed the funds that the overseas men sent back to help. That was very important for them.
We had a very close relationship with Popo because we'd visit her every Saturday after my dad shut the shop. We'd meet our cousins at Popo's place and she'd have a huge feast prepared for us. We've kept a lot of her recipes alive and her techniques. She taught us how to preserve the lemons, and so, I still do that, and then I distribute the lemons around the family, and we all make lemon chicken. And always think of her whenever we make it, so it's just one of these things that we still keep her memory alive, which is wonderful.
I think a lot of our memories, perhaps our early days would be going camping at Raglan, and in later years it was Whangmata.
Auntie Gwen and Uncle Ray, they bought a batch, so we would all gather and have fond memories of us going crabbing at night off the wharf and Popo cooking them up. She loved collecting shellfish and, in particular, periwinkles. So we would have fun eating those and sucking them out of their shells.
She could sew and do crochet work well. She could do beautiful beadwork, basketware, and intricate paper cutouts.
My daughter Gabriella, she's 18 and studying design at Victoria University. She's probably inherited more of her creativeness and artiness from her great-grandmother. So I'm really proud of Gabriella. She's very much her own person.
I think we are quite connected. A lot of my family tell me that I get my creativeness from her. When I was a kid, I used to do these little loom band thing. It's like rubber bands, crocheting. And so I used to do all these 3D figurines and make bracelets and jewellery. I also just, in general, am a pretty creative person. I really like painting and drawing and digital art. So I think it's cool that we have this almost connection, even though I've never met her. I identify very much as a New Zealand Chinese woman. I'm very proud of my Chinese culture and heritage. And I think that everyone else should be too, who's Chinese. Especially when I was younger, I wasn't really too proud of being Chinese. I always wanted to fit in with the, blonde, blue-eyed girls. I didn't see myself as pretty, but now I fully own it. I'm very proud to be Chinese and New Zealand born. I can be both, and that's allowed. I'm not afraid to express myself. I I'm Caitlin Tam, I'm 18 and I was born in Auckland. I identify myself as a Kiwi, but I'm very proud of my Chinese culture and background. My favourite subjects in school were maths and physics, and that's because I've always liked problem solving. I wanted to study engineering, and I'm thinking software engineering because I've always had the interest in technology. I think the number of girls in technology now has definitely improved, but I still think there's a difference in women in STEM, and that's something that I'd like to contribute to. Certainly for Auckland, I feel pretty privileged to grow up in a good area, in a household that has food, water, and clean clothes, and a very easy way to get my own job and provide for myself as well.
To be Chinese in Aotearoa is an interesting question. I think growing up, I always found that I thought I had to choose being Kiwi or Chinese. I think it's more nuanced than that now. I think that you can be a Kiwi Chinese together now and be comfortable with being culturally Chinese and being a Kiwi at the same time.
Our father was fairly
Very traditional.
And
Very strict.
he sort of drummed into us, you know, don't marry outside of the Chinese race. So
We were the oldest. We got the big lecture.
So we were too scared to date anyone who wasn't Chinese. But he became more relaxed later in life, and so he wasn't so strict with the younger two sisters.
I didn't feel any pressure or anything to marry any. We could just marry anyone that we wanted to, so. Yeah.
I think my pōpō at first was a little bit sceptical about what career path or just path in general I would go down, being a generally artsy person, but she's definitely come around, and I think she's really supportive of what I'm doing. She's really happy with the choices I'm going to make with uni, whereas for my parents, they were generally always very supportive. They just said to me, as long as I'm happy and can make a living for myself, that they'll be very content. I'm just very glad they realised that I'm a creative person and academics just wasn't really my thing.
Yeah, I think Pōpō would have been proud of the fact that we've maintained a lot of the traditions and values that she had. Yeah, I don't think that we've strayed at all from what she believed in.
Family's really important.
Yeah, family is important, hardworking, loyal. I think those are all things that she was really, really strong about, and that I think kind of echo through our family a lot, yeah, so.
If Mum was still alive today, I would just thank her for everything, and to say she was such an incredible woman and that she really did do such a great job of a great family.
If my taipo were alive and I could say anything to her, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for just being so brave to come to New Zealand. She had such a tough journey to come over here, and I can't imagine doing that myself. I'd like to tell her about all my experiences, and I think she'd be very proud and supportive. And I'd like to thank her for being so brave to come to New Zealand, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities that her move has allowed me.
Today, I wish to say to my mother, thank you. Thank you from the very bottom of my heart for all you have done. My life began with you, and till the day we lost you, you showed such infinite love and care. And for all the hard work you had to endure, I feel I can never thank you enough.
woods are bare. The time has come, the time that I fear. Daughter, sweet daughter, you must go alone to a foreign country, far from your home, and be an immigrant woman, young, brave, and free. Refugee woman, crossing land and sea.
非常感謝 New Zealand On Air 嘅幫助。